We live in interesting times.
For the headlines.
The White House scrambled to lock down records of President Trump's phone call pressing for Ukraine's interference in next year's U.S. election. An incendiary whistleblower complaint alleges in the latest episode of an intensifying impeachment drama.
Hong Kong's embattled leader Carrie Lam endured a barrage of criticism at a town hall meeting Thursday night that laid bare anger coursing through the city after months of huge, sometimes violent pro-democracy protests.
The Office of the Solicitor General defended Malacanang's decision not to renew the accreditation of online news outfit Rappler to cover its events following government regulators' findings that it violated constitutional restrictions on foreign investments for mass media entities.
And Britain's Prince Harry on Friday walked through a cleared minefield in Angola, tracing his late mother's footsteps to draw attention to a country that remains plagued by landmines.
I'm Mama Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
And now to the news. The White House scrambled to lock down records of President Trump's phone call pressing for Ukraine's interference in next year's U.S. election, according to an incendiary whistleblower complaint released on Thursday in the latest episode of an intensifying impeachment drama. The complaint caps a stunning week of revelations that have put Trump's presidency in jeopardy, with his administration, the Justice Department, and State Department all engulfed in the mushrooming scandal. It also alleges that White House officials said they had likely witnessed the president abused his office for personal gain in the July call with Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky. The alleged misconduct centers on President Trump urging President Zelensky to investigate the U.S. leader's political rival Joe Biden, prompting the complaint and triggering a congressional impeachment probe. The whistleblower, who says he spoke to at least 6 U.S. government officials, concluded that President Trump was using the power of his office to solicit interference from a foreign country in the 2020 U.S. election. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi led Democratic condemnation of President Trump and those alleged to have hidden the call's full transcript on a limited access electronics record system.
The complaint reports a, quote, repeated abuse of an electronic record system designed to store classified, sensitive national security information, which the White House used to hide information of a political nature. This is a cover-up. This is a cover-up.
The whistleblower presented a 9-page complaint on August 12 to the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community. That official, a Trump appointee, found it credible and of urgent concern, and then forwarded it to Joseph McGuire, the Acting Director General or Director of National Intelligence. McGuire initially refused to deliver the complaint to Congress, but it was ultimately declassified and Congress released it on Thursday. McGuire testified before the House Intelligence Committee that he earlier withheld the complaint because President Trump's call was subject to executive privilege.
That many of the allegations in the complaint are based on a conversation between the president and another foreign leader. Such calls are typically subject to executive privilege. As a result, we consulted with the White House counsel's office, and we were advised that much of the information in the complaint was, in fact, subject to executive privilege, a privilege that I do not have the authority to waive.
I'm asking you whether As the statute requires, this complaint involved serious wrongdoing, in this case by the President of the United States, an allegation of serious wrongdoing by the President of the United States. Is that not the subject of this complaint?
Yes, that is the subject of the allegation of the complaint.
Director, you don't believe the whistleblower is a political hack, do you?
I don't know who the whistleblower is, Mr. Chairman. To be honest with you, I've done my utmost to make sure that I protect his anonymity.
Now, Mr. McGuire insisted he doesn't know the whistleblower's identity. On Thursday, the New York Times reported that he is a male CIA officer who was detailed to the White House. Now, that prompted his lawyer to warn that any decision to report identifying information would be reckless, as it can place the individual in harm's way. The Times defended its decision to publish limited details about the whistleblower's identity, citing the need to establish his credibility.
Meanwhile, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy defends U.S. President Donald Trump, saying House Speaker Nancy Pelosi moved against the rules on impeachment and without one bit of evidence. He was speaking during a news briefing on Capitol Hill.
And when you read the transcript, tell me one thing in there that is impeachable. But tell me this: the Speaker of the House moved for impeachment against the rules without having the full body vote for it, without one bit of evidence. But let's be very clear. When you read the transcript, the President says, when he uses the word favor, that everybody has been misquoting here about what transpires afterwards, to participate in an open investigation by the Attorney General, which is totally lawful, of something that transpired in 2016. Nothing about a further election, nothing about Biden in the further election either. I don't have a problem with the whistleblower coming forward, but what I'd like to see with the whistleblower, because I'd like to see a lot of questions. Who this individual is. I know the IG says that there's political bias, he or she, but everything the whistleblower brought forth was nothing that the whistleblower witnessed personally.
This whistleblower has given us a roadmap for our investigation, but it's important to underscore that what we are able to corroborate already about the whistleblower has been corroborated in detail by this record of the President's conversation with the President of Ukraine.
And if, as alleged,
The chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Democratic Representative Adam Schiff, says the whistleblower's complaint is a roadmap for the investigation.
Sets out a series of the most damning allegations concerning the conduct of the president and others potentially within the administration. In that, it lays out a scheme to use the leverage of the presidency, use the leverage of the vital military assistance to a foreign nation to provide or obtain dirt on a political opponent. It's hard to imagine a more serious set of allegations than those contained in the complaint. This whistleblower has given us a roadmap for our investigation, but it's important to underscore that what we are able to corroborate already about the whistleblower has been corroborated in detail by this record of the President's conversation with the President of Ukraine.
Acting Director McGuire.
And Republican Senator Richard Burr, the chairman of the U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee, says the panel is committed to make sure that we get to the bottom of what questions need answers as the scandal surrounding U.S. President Donald Trump's request to the Ukrainian president to investigate Joe Biden continues to roil Washington.
Acting Director McGuire and the ICIG, Michael Atkinson, were extremely forthcoming with us today, extremely helpful at trying to fill in some of the things that we haven't been able to pick up just from the published documents. This will generate more questions than we asked today, So the next 2 weeks we'll probably be trying to get answers to those. Don't expect us to move at light speed. That'll probably happen in the House. But the committee's committed to make sure that we get to the bottom of what questions need answers.
One of the most important things that came out of today, though, is maintaining the integrity of the whistleblower process. People need to be able to come forward when they've seen incidents of waste, fraud, abuse, or inappropriate behavior and feel that there are not going to be reprisals.
Hunter Biden, the second son of former U.S. Vice President Joe Biden, is at the center of a scandal. The scandal erupted after it emerged President Trump had leaned on Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky to investigate the father and son over Hunter's work in Ukraine. In 2014, while his father was Barack Obama's vice president and overseeing U.S. relations with Kyiv, Biden joined the board of the Ukrainian company Burisma Holdings. Burisma says it is the largest private producer of natural gas and one of the leading gas groups in Ukraine. It is registered in Cyprus, a popular tax haven for many companies in the former USSR. The group announced at the time that Biden would lead its legal unit and represent it in international organizations. Biden has said he wanted to advise the group on transparency. Burisma was owned by controversial pro-Russian Ukrainian ex-MP and businessman Mykola Zlochevsky. From 2010 to 2012, Zlochevsky served as Environment and Natural Resources Minister under President Viktor Yanukovych, and he reportedly issued licenses for gas production to his own company. Yanukovych fled to Russia in 2014 after Kyiv's pro-Western anti-corruption revolution. After the revolution, there were corruption investigations into the country's former leadership. The month Biden arrived at Burisma, London froze $23 million in Zlochevsky's British accounts, and several investigations for money laundering were launched in the UK and in Ukraine. In Kyiv, these were overseen by Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin. Former Vice President Joe Biden, a major proponent of Ukraine's reforms, asked Shokin to be dismissed, citing poor results against corruption. President Trump and his lawyer, former mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani, accused Joe Biden of asking for the firing to protect his son, Hunter.
But Adam Schiff doesn't talk about Joe Biden and his son walking away with millions of dollars from Ukraine and then millions of dollars from China, walking away in a quick meeting, walking away with millions of dollars. He doesn't talk about Joe Biden firing a prosecutor, and if that prosecutor is not fired, he's not going to give him money from the United States of America. They don't talk about that. My call was perfect. The president yesterday of Ukraine said there was no pressure put on him whatsoever, none whatsoever. And he said it loud and clear for the press.
Hong Kong's embattled leader endured a barrage of criticism at a town hall meeting Thursday night that laid bare anger coursing through the city after months of huge, sometimes violent pro-democracy protests. Chief Executive Carrie Lam faced more than 2 hours of grilling at a public dialogue session, the first time her pro-Beijing administration has sat down with its critics in 16 consecutive weeks of unrest.
嗱，你經歷咗呢次事，一個接近懸崖式嘅信任嘅下降，係一個好大嘅挑戰，係一個好大嘅困難。除咗喺政治上揾出路，我可以同大家講，我哋都喺政策上揾出路，喺聆聽 同埋同市民溝通嗰方面揾出路。但呢啲路係要人行出嚟嘅。今晚係一個我認為係好好嘅第一步。
I'm not satisfied with how CE has replied us. However, I didn't come with any hope to this talk because I don't think the CE will listen or will reply to any of our demands. But the general public has already repeating their demands again and again, over and over, but she's still using the same answer, which is still not satisfying.
Of the 30 people chosen to speak throughout the evening, 24 openly criticized the government, 2 made neutral comments, while 4 expressed sympathy for Lam's administration. But it is unclear what, if anything, Mrs. Lam could offer. Both she and Beijing have ruled out any further concessions to protesters, whose 5 demands include an independent inquiry into police conduct, an amnesty for more than 1,500 people arrested, and fully free elections. Throughout her appearance on Thursday, Mrs. Lam resisted making concrete comments beyond continuing to listen to people and holding more town halls. Police maintained a low presence near the venue, but local media said 3,000 officers were on standby in case of clashes. The brother of Pakistani social media star Kandil Balok was on Friday convicted of her murder and sentenced to life in prison in the patriarchal country's highest profile honor killing. Balok, who shot to fame for her risk selfies, tame by Western standards, but considered provocative and deeply misogynistic Pakistan, was strangled in July 2016. Her brother Muhammad Wasim was arrested. Days later, he told a press conference that he had no remorse over what he did, saying that, of course, he had murdered his sister and that her behavior had been intolerable. Earlier, Balok's mother, Anwar Mai, told AFP she had hoped her son would be acquitted. He is innocent. She was my daughter and he is my son, she said. Balok's murder made international headlines and reignited calls for action against an endemic or epidemic of so-called honor killings, in which a victim, usually a woman, is murdered for flouting patriarchal social codes. Women have been burned, shot, stabbed, and strangled for offenses such as choosing their own husband, or in Balok's case, bringing shame on their family by celebrating their sexuality. The killings are usually carried out by a close relative under Pakistan's qisas or blood money and diyat retribution law. They can then seek forgiveness from a victim's relatives. 3 months after Balok's murder, Parliament passed new legislation mandating life imprisonment for honor killings. More news will be coming your way when Eagle News International returns.
Tinatawagan ng mga persons with disability at senior citizens. Nais nyo ba na makasiguro na makabubuto kayo sa Accessible Polling Place o EPP? Kung gayon, inayanan kayo na mag-update ng inyong record sa pamamagitan ng pagpilat ng Supplementary Data Form.
Sa pamamagitan ng Supplementary Data Form, maipapaalam ninyo ang inyong disability at kinakailangang tulong sa araw ng eleksyon. Dito nyo rin maipahahayag kung nais ninyong bumoto sa Accessible Polling Place.
Kaya kung nais ninyong maging accessible ang inyong pagboto sa araw ng eleksyon, mag-update na kayo ngayong registration period.
Pumunta lang sa opisina ng election officer sa inyong lugar mula Lunes hanggang Sabado o sa mga satellite registration.
Thousands of New Zealanders around the country kicked off a new march against global warming and climate change. Watch this.
Thousands of New Zealanders across the country are marching today as part of the school strike for climate, wherein participants are demanding for urgent action in combating against further global warming and climate change. At the very seat of power here in New Zealand, in the Parliament grounds, marchers are convening as their last stop to show their force and let their voice to be heard by the policymakers. More than 40 rallies and marches across the country were held today, including in the Wellington city. An estimated record number of more than 40,000 New Zealanders and other peoples from various backgrounds gathered at around 11 o'clock in the morning at the civic square of the city, after which they marched together towards the parliament. As they were marching, they were chanting for climate justice, as the signboards they were holding conveyed urgent messages for the need of concrete actions to combating against further global warming and climate change. The School Strike for Climate is now an international movement of school students around the globe who are taking time off from their classes to show their force in demanding urgent actions for the environment from their respective governments. It may be noted that this movement has started after Swedish schoolgirl Greta Thunberg staged a protest in August 2018 outside the Swedish parliament, holding a sign that read, "School Strike for the Climate." She is now a global inspiration for those who are campaigning against global warming and climate change. In New Zealand, as global warming and climate change have become a national issue, the School Strike for Climate has evolved into a general nationwide strike wherein the protesters are no longer within the ranks of school students, but they now also include people from all walks of life. In today's rally in the Wellington city, a number of businesses allowed their workers to skip from work to join the rally. On the other hand, parents brought their children as they marched alongside with students, senior citizens, and those who are working in various professions. Though they did not know one another, they were being united by a common conviction to preserving and protecting the planet Earth for the sake of the next generations. And they all wanted to make it known to the members of Parliament of New Zealand. The thousands of people who are gathering here at Parliament grounds believe that we owe to the next generations the planet that we are living in today. Thus, it is only proper that we have to love and care for the planet that we live in. From Parliament grounds in Wellington, New Zealand, this is Greg Bessa. I am and will always be one with 25.
The United States plans to dramatically lower the ceiling on a decades-old refugee resettlement program to 18,000 people, officials said Thursday, blaming the influx of migrants along the country's southern border for imposing too great a burden. It represents a reduction of 40% from its current level of 30,000 people, already a record low, threatening America's historic position as the most generous destination for those fleeing war and persecution. A responsible approach to refugees is one that seeks the eventual return of refugees to their home countries so that they can help to rebuild their own nation, said President Donald Trump in a statement announcing the move. It added that under a new order, refugees would only be resettled in jurisdictions where state and local authorities consent. As a means of serving U.S. foreign policy interests, refugee admissions have specific allocations for people persecuted for religious beliefs, Iraqis whose assistance to the U.S. puts them in danger, and legitimate refugees from the Northern Triangle, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. The death toll from a powerful earthquake that rocked Indonesia's remote Maluku Islands was revised downwards to 19 on Friday, the disaster agency said, lowering its previous figure of 23 killed. Terrified residents ran into the streets as buildings fell in around them on Thursday when the 6.5 magnitude tremor struck, sparking landslides that buried at least one victim. Among the confirmed dead was an infant, with many killed by falling debris in and around quake-struck Ambon City. National Disaster Mitigation Agency spokesman Agus Wibowo said the death toll had been lowered after officials realized some of the deceased has been double counted. The U.S. Geological Survey said the quake struck about 37 kilometers northeast of Ambon in Maluku province at a depth of 29 kilometers. The area was hit by at least 24 aftershocks, including one that measured 5.6 magnitude.
Saya juga ingin menyampaikan atas nama pribadi dan pemerintah mengucapkan duka cita yang mendalam atas musibah gempa yang terjadi di Ambon yang menimpa saudara-saudara kita yang di Ambon. Tadi juga saya sampaikan kepada Menteri Sosial untuk memberikan santunan dan untuk yang luka-luka perawatannya akan ditanggung oleh pemerintah. Dan terkait kerusakan fisik akibat gempa, ini masih dilakukan pendataan secara detail. Tapi kemarin
dari balai jalan-jalan pijak di jalan.
The International Atomic Energy Agency said Iran has started using advanced models of centrifuges to enrich uranium. The UN's nuclear watchdog said Thursday in a new breach of the faltering 2015 deal with world powers. The centrifuges concerned are 20 IR-4 centrifuges and a further 2 cascades of 30 IR-6 centrifuges. Enriched uranium is needed to produce nuclear fuel, but higher levels of enrichment can also be used to make the fissile core of an atomic bomb. Iran has always insisted that its nuclear program is peaceful. Under the 2015 deal with world powers that puts curbs on Iran's nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief, Tehran is only meant to enrich uranium using less efficient IR-1 centrifuges. The IR-4, IR-4 and IR-6 models can produce enriched uranium much faster than the IR-1 models. The landmark accord, known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, has been in jeopardy since May last year when President Trump withdrew the U.S. from it and reimposed sanctions. The remaining parties to the deal with Iran, Britain, China, France, Germany, and Russia have tried to salvage the accord. But Tehran has repeatedly accused Europe of not doing enough, leaving it little option but to scale back its commitments under the JCPOA.
The Office of the Solicitor General on Thursday defended Malacanang's decision not to renew the accreditation of online news outfit Rappler to cover its events following government regulators' findings that it violated constitutional restrictions on foreign investments for mass media entities. In a statement, Solicitor General Jose Calida said the firm's petition before the Supreme Court failed to prove their allegations of abridgment of free press. Calida said, and I quote, Rappler attempted to portray this case in their news reports as an alarming threat to press freedom. However, the petition miserably failed to present any genuine issue on the alleged abridgment of free press. The mere act of the government enforcing its accreditation rules does not in any way affect or trample upon petitioners' constitutional freedom of the press. The top government counsel asserted that the mere act of the government enforcing its accreditation rules does not in any way affect or trample upon petitioners' constitutional freedom of the press. The constitutional right, he added, does not certainly include the right to demand a special press pass, special accreditation, or a special spot at any news conference or press briefing. Kalida noted that since the expiration of its accreditation in December 2017 and its eventual non-renewal, Rappler continues to have access to press releases and media briefers from PCOO and rebroadcasts presidential events through Radio Television Malacanang RTVM. Following the SEC decision, the IPC denied Rappler's application for renewal of accreditation. The Amaro also denied its reporter Pia Renada physical access in all events attended by President Rodrigo Duterte. The Solicitor General said while the government recognizes the role of free press in the country as part of the democratic process, it does not mean that media organizations are above the law. He said, and I quote, "Our people deserve news reports from legitimate media organizations that comply with the rules on accreditation, respect the decisions of the tribunals, and obey the Constitution and our laws."
It's a nice welcome home, I suppose.
In other news, Britain's Prince Harry walked through a cleared minefield in Angola, tracing his late mother's footsteps to draw attention to a country that remains plagued by landmines. Take a look. Donning a protective visor and blue bulletproof vest, Harry was almost the exact replica of Princess Diana when she famously walked across a cleared minefield near the central city of Wambo in 1997. Princess Diana was drawing attention to the more than 1 million landmines planted during Angola's 27-year civil war, which ended in 2002. Just months later, she was killed in a car crash in Paris when Harry was just 12 years old. The engagement comes 22 years after Prince Harry's late mother walked through a partially cleared minefield in the African nation, with the photos of her visit quickly becoming iconic. But Prince Harry won't be recreating that famous image. The area that was once a dangerous minefield in 1997 is now a busy street with schools, shops, and houses. Prince Harry will have the opportunity to see the same area she visited to see how it has thrived since the landmines were cleared. And it's sure to be a poignant visit for the Duke, as his mother never saw her work to help outlaw mines come to fruition, as she died in August 1997, a few months before the international treaty to ban the military weapons was signed. Prince Harry is on a 10-day tour of Southern Africa, which he started in Cape Town with his wife Meghan and 4-month-old son Archie.
Hawaii correspondent Alfredo Senas recently visited the island of Molokai, which is the closest to Oahu. There he will give us a brief tour and highlight some unique features about the small island getaway. Watch this.
How's it? We're gonna go island hopping to the island of Molokai. Right now we're here in an aircraft called a Cessna. It's a propeller aircraft and it's a very short trip, about half an hour. So strap for your seatbelts, get ready for this trip. Here we go. As you can see on the far right edge of your screen, this is now the western part of Molokai Island. It is almost a half an hour into our flight, and some have approached us and asked about, hey, why not build some sort of a tunnel or a bridge or causeway of sorts to connect all these islands, especially between Oahu and Molokai? And the simple answer is that this channel right here, this body of water, is a critical passageway for marine life, especially humpback whales around this time of year when they migrate between here and north of the Pacific Ocean. Right now, I believe they're at the tail end of their feeding and breeding nursing season here. here in Molokai and especially in Maui. So any kind of infrastructure that's placed in between could compromise their natural environment.
The island of Molokai is located between southeast of Oahu and west of Maui. Being the 5th largest island in the Aloha State, Molokai is more than twice the size of Staten Island, New York, or about the size of Guam. But with a population of just slightly above 7,000, Molokai is often described as the most Hawaiian of all islands because of its predominantly agricultural and natural environments.
We should be landing at Molokai's airport any minute now. I believe we're looking at the center portion of the island, and as we notice, it's mostly lush green. Not a whole lot of civilization, if you, so to speak. It's as if we're going back in time to the old days of Hawaii, full of lush fields, mountains, obviously no freeways, nothing of that sort that's already typical in Oahu.
Molokai is a friendly isle, and people are really very nice when you meet them, and that's why I love to stay over here. Molokai is a peaceful place, and there's no traffic lights, and there are plenty deers in the road when.
Oh, plenty of animals.
No, the deers. You can meet sometimes 20 deers in the when I'm going home at my place, and I can meet, and then they eat my plants. The deers, yeah.
About a 15-minute drive north of Molokai Island's airport is a peninsula that literally sticks out like a thumb on the map. Named the Kalaupapa Peninsula, it once served as an area for those afflicted with Hansen's disease, more commonly known as leprosy, in the 19th century. We hitched a ride with Theta, a Honolulu resident who was also visiting the island for an event and some relaxation.
The best thing about Molokai is, it's a good time for you and your family to just plan for a weekend trip here, relax, just kind of really take your time and just drive around and see the beautiful spots here.
We're gonna head out to a famous lookout here on Molokai called Kalaupapa. Let's check it out. Just into this trail, this reminds me of another trail on Oahu called Kuli'o'o Ridge in East Oahu. You got your pine trees here and a rough trail with roots sticking out, and at the end of this trail you're gonna have a breathtaking view of the ocean and everything else that's over there.
After much effort in walking the rugged trails, we were finally welcomed with a cemented sidewalk that led us to the breathtaking views of Kalaupapa. Several markers highlight the location's history and significance. So, for a quick getaway from the hustle and bustle of Honolulu, why not take the time to visit Molokai Island and the Kalaupapa lookout trails? While there may be positive features about Molokai Island, there are some notable drawbacks as well. Residents here have to greatly depend on Oahu and other places outside to sustain their lives and livelihoods.
Prices of commodities are high because, of course, they ship it over here and it costs more. And there's no McDonald's or Jollibee. So every time we go off islands, we go to Burger King and Jollibee and McDonald's. And prices of gasoline are high. We just have to deal with it because we have no choice. The commodities are coming in through barge like that, so we just have to live our life, but it's a peaceful life. I like it here.
Later in the day, we headed back south to Kaunakakai, Molokai's largest town. This is also home to one bakery that makes one of the most sought-after bread in the entire Aloha State. Meanwhile, Molokai resident Lynn shared her experience about life on this small island.
For me, it's simple. My bayanihan, especially for the Filipino community, it feels like home in the Philippines. Well, this is a friendly isle, of course. It's always known as a friendly isle. But we are always welcome people to come and visit the island.
Other attractions on Molokai include Papohaku Beach Park to the west and Halava Valley to the east. Places that, at least for yours truly, are definitely worth visiting in the near future. So we hope you've enjoyed our little tour of Molokai, the Friendly Isle. Reporting from the island of Molokai in Hawaii, I'm Alfred Asenas, 1 with 25.
Eagle News will be right back. Stay tuned.
Tungkulin ng MTRCV ang mag-provide
around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
Welcome back. Asian markets fell Friday following declines on Wall Street as the impeachment inquiry into President Trump weighed on sentiment. Political turmoil in Washington following the release of a whistleblower's complaint overshadowed positive comments from President Trump on U.S.-China trade talks and steps towards a new agreement with Japan. The incendiary complaint again alleges President Trump sought to enlist Ukraine to help his 2020 campaign and then conspired with staff to cover it up. Stephen Ennis, Asia-Pacific market strategist at Axie Traders, said, quote, "The market isn't clear on what to make of the latest impeachment developments in the U.S. And this continues to increase uncertainty and could be weighing on investor sentiment. Compounding this uncertainty is the stark reality that most of the global economy is moving in reverse, while omnipresent geopolitical unease ensures the market remains in a constant wobble on a forever shifting trade war axis." In Asia, Tokyo closed down 0.8% as many shares went ex-dividend and Seoul dropped 1.2%. Hong Kong slipped 0.3% while Shanghai ended 0.1% higher, with trade cautious ahead of a week-long holiday to mark the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. Singapore, Malaysia, and Taiwan retreated while Sydney rose 0.6%, one of the few Asian markets to see any gains.
Nobel Prize-winning economist Joseph Stiglitz said the global economy is entering a severe slowdown but told AFP in an interview he did not see it hurtling towards crisis. The U.S. economist also discussed the impact on an impeachment inquiry into Donald Trump. Here's more.
The impeachment may add a new level of uncertainty, but I don't think it's going to make much difference from what we've had before. To me, from a political point of view and an economic point of view, it is very important to have a rule of law. It is very likely, very almost certain, that the political uncertainties that America is going through with a president as erratic as Trump have economic consequences. You know, everybody says businesses don't like uncertainty, and Trump maximizes uncertainty. GDP has gone up, the measure of economy has gone up, but the average American has not done very well. Life expectancy in the United States is in decline. Incomes, wages at the bottom are the same as they were 60 years ago, adjusted for inflation. Yeah.
The 2001 winner of the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Sciences said he wasn't concerned about rate cuts by U.S. and Eurozone central banks and a revival of liquidity injections into the economy. Stiglitz said the three main economies, China, the Eurozone, and the United States, were all having problems.
As erratic as China's economic policy, we now have a very serious trade war. And it's not a normal trade war, because as erratic as China's economic policy may have been, Trump is 100 times more erratic. I don't think that there's going to be another major crisis. The conditions which led to the 2008 crisis were very special. It was reckless lending and exploitation by the big banks, regulators who were closing their eyes, a ideology that said banks know how to manage the risk, we can trust them. That's changed.
Stiglitz was chief economist at the World Bank for 3 years after serving as the head of U.S. President Bill Clinton's Council of Economic Advisors.
Saudi Arabia said it will offer tourist visas for the first time, opening up the ultra-conservative kingdom to holidaymakers as part of a push to diversify its economy away from oil. Kickstarting tourism is one of the centerpieces of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's Vision 2030 reform program to prepare the biggest Arab economy for a post-oil era. The announcement comes just 2 weeks after devastating attacks on Saudi Arabia's oil infrastructure blamed by Washington on Iran, which roiled global energy markets and raised fears of a wider regional conflict. Opening Saudi Arabia to international tourists is a historic moment for our country, according to Tourism Chief Ahmed Al-Khatib in a statement. Saudi Arabia will open applications for online tourist visas to citizens of 49 countries on Saturday, according to Bloomberg News. Khatib also said the kingdom will also ease its strict dress code for foreign women, allowing them to go without the body-shrouding abaya robe that's still mandatory public wear for Saudi women. Foreign women, however, will be required to wear modest clothing, he added, without elaborating. Visas in the Desert Kingdom, endowed with rich Bedouin heritage and archaeological sites, are currently restricted to expat workers, their dependents, and Muslim pilgrims traveling to sites in Mecca and Medina.
British car maker Jaguar and Rover said Thursday it would suspend production for a week after the planned Brexit date of October 31 as a prudent measure. Both BMW and Toyota have said they that they will not build cars at their British factories on the day after Brexit, the 1st of November. According to local press reports, BMW will also close its units in Britain on October 31. The announcement came after Britain's appointment on a no-deal Brexit, Michael Gove, said that the auto sector was ready for the brutal exit by the UK from the bloc. Toyota's top brass has warned that it will be hit in case of a no-deal withdrawal, especially its factory in Burnaston, which makes 600 vehicles daily. The UK Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders has warned that the cost to auto companies of 1 minute of stopped production time in Britain would amount to 54,700 euros, or that's 50,000 pounds. Experts have cautioned that car firms could be saddled with additional expenses of £4.5 billion every year in customs duties.
An aid to humanity by the Iglesia Ni Cristo has been conducted in India. 15,000 people in attendance. Take a look. It's one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Poverty has seen a decline in this country, with close to 44 Indians escaping extreme poverty every minute. This is according to World Poverty Clock. High population growth rate, though, is one of the major reasons of poverty in India. Now, this further leads to high level of illiteracy, poor healthcare facilities, and a lack of access to financial resources. Now, as I said earlier, 15,000 were beneficiaries of this Iglesia Ni Cristo event in partnership with the Felix Y. Manalo. Officials of the Felix Y. Manalo were in attendance, as well as members of the parliament in India. Let's listen in.
This aid to humanity doing by the Iglesia Ni Cristo is not only in India. This is done in all over the world. So for us, we are inviting all of you. We are inviting all of you to study the doctrine of the Iglesia Ni Cristo.
The first ever in-center stage in the country of Japan was held in the newly established district of Nagoya, Japan. Faith, Love, and Hope was the name of the stage play that captivated the filled venue of members and visitors alike. The main goal of the play is to tell the real-life stories of church members in their country. Lou Omelda reports.
Faith, Love, and Hope is the title of the first ever stage play performed in Japan by the members of the Church of Christ for their 105th anniversary. As part of the 105th anniversary of the Church of Christ this year, members from all over the world prepared theatrical productions that showcased inspiring stories of their membership in the church. In Japan, the members from the western regions gathered to witness the stage play. It was held at a small cultural hall in the city of Kariya in Aichi Prefecture. It is already given that producing a stage play takes a lot of time and effort. It also requires the creativity and talent of its members to show their audience the best performance. Everything could have been easier for the production team in Japan if only they were able to rehearse and see each other in person. Yes, you heard it right. The production team in Japan did all their rehearsals and meetings not in person but online, screen to screen alone, until the day before the play itself. Some may have assumed that this play would be a disaster, considering the situation, but the actors and crew were able to prove them all skeptics wrong. A simple yet beautiful script was formed, so was the dream team. The production staff thought of the best way to rehearse without having to be in the same place, since each member were situated miles away from other members. In less than 2 months, they were able to conduct brainstorming sessions, online rehearsals 2 to 4 times a week, memorize their lines, and worked on the actors' nonverbal mannerisms through video calls alone. Surprisingly, no one in the team had first-hand experience in directing or producing a stage play, but the ideas kept coming. The passion, faith, and willingness to participate kept them going. The day before the play date finally came, and it was also the first time for the members of this production to meet each other in person. Some traveled a total of 8 hours just to be where the play would be. Unexpectedly, after less than a day of rehearsals at the venue itself, all the actors and crew were able to quickly adjust and started to form connections. With a very limited time of organizing the props and set design, the team needed a lot of support and help from the church members in Nagoya. Many willingly offered help and even brought their own personal belongings as props for the play. The main goal of the play was to tell the real-life stories of church members, specifically in Japan. The writer, Ms. Patricia Antonio, wanted to make the audience relate to the scenes, not only reflecting on the general situation of overseas Filipino workers in Japan, but also their personal struggles as members of the Church of Christ. It definitely seemed like a long and tiring journey towards the play date, but many from those who participated and helped expressed how fun it was to meet different kinds of people, to know their stories, and experience being part of a historical event, as it was the first ever stage play held in Japan. The audience, with much anticipation, wasn't disappointed as well. Tears and laughter filled the hall, and a standing ovation was received by the performers. Reporting from Osaka, Japan, this is Luz Stefan Omelda for Eagle News International, and I am 1 with 25.
Thank you, Lou. And we'll have more updates on the...
aid to humanity on India.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also check out our boards and Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us.
And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles, and we're 1 with 25.